to another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics who write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc Kramer, serial entrepreneur who consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs, and currently I'm teaching entrepreneurship at Vinh University in Hanoi, Vietnam. But today I'm in an area called Sapa. Please welcome Jeremie Kubicek, author of the book The Voice-Driven Leader: How to Hear, Value, and Maximize Every Voice on Your Team. Jeremie, thanks for taking the time.
Good to be with you, Mark. Excited to spend time together.
Let's start off with you giving us your background about how you got to where you're at right now.
Started off, graduated from college, had a professor who said, Jeremy, the best opportunity in the world right now is in the former Soviet Union. And so this was 1993. I moved to former Soviet Union into Russia in Moscow and started three companies: an economics school, which is now the largest private school in Russia, an accounting training business, and a marketing company. And I had the privilege, or I don't know if the privilege is the right word, I had experiences of being in a coup attempt, car bombs, lived above a mafia group, had a client assassinated. And that's how I started my career in literally building businesses in the former Soviet Union.
It sounds like a movie.
It was crazy. I'm actually writing a docu-series right now on the stories, and it's phenomenal.
Wow. And I'm assuming you speak fluent Russian.
Da da da. Uh, I
How
do.
did you end up? Were you a Russian major in college?
No, no. I came to Asia when I had that same professor took me to Asia for a term to study all through Asia, and I had already had the travel bug. And growing up in Oklahoma on a farm, I wanted to go as far as I could away from the farm, and Moscow was pretty far, right? So, other side of the world, and then that adventure started me off on all of my ventures because of this kind of phrase I adopted of "Who says you can't?" And
Yeah.
it was just a phrase that I started to just really absorb and use in my daily practice.
Isn't there a Moscow, Kansas? You could have ended up in Moscow, Kansas, right?
Right, could have.
Yeah. And how long were you in Russia for?
I was there just at 2 years, just 2 years that felt like five.
Well, it sounds like you got enough done in 2 years that was more like 10.
It really was, and then had situations. You know, when you think about your life and the stories that prepare you for your calling, I these stories were really significant. So my father-in-law was in the Oklahoma City bombing, and that's what brought me back to Oklahoma. And he survived, but lost the majority of his staff. And so my wife and I basically came back to Oklahoma because of that. And then we started our career from here, moved on to buying businesses in Atlanta, moved to London for a few years, and then moved back to hometown.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing experience. So let's talk about your book. In chapter one, you open the book with Sophie's resignation, a high performer who quietly disengaged for years before finally walking out. And before you answer this, I should have asked you this. Why did you even write this book?
I wrote it because I've written seven books. I've had all of our world in the giant ecosystem that I built. We've had clients and all of our coaches and consultants go, show us how. Like, how do you take personality and develop people via personality? And so I would teach it and explain it, but I hadn't had it written down yet. And so this was like the actual field guide. This is the meatiest, most field guide book I've ever written. It's like, if you want to develop people based on their personality and your personality, this is exactly how to do it.
And really, that's how you should think about it, right? Because they're individuals. I mean, it can't be one way of doing it works for everybody. You have to really understand the people. And you open the book with Sophie's resignation, a high performer who quietly disengaged for years before finally walking out. What is it about that story that makes it such a common, almost invisible failure among leaders who otherwise think they're doing a good job?
I think most leaders that I've found, they lead based on who they are and their experience. So, like, hey, look, here's how we do it. These are the rules. This is my style. And so it's like the parent who's always parenting based on who they are, not understanding who their kids are. It's the same with employees. It's like if you don't know the people, especially in today's world with the next generation, they want to be known. They want authenticity. They want to connect. And so if you're constantly just ignoring who people are and how they think, then you're going to miss them. You're not going to produce the best in them. And then they're going to become compliant, not engaged. I think that's the secret of most every team issue is when did you lose them? And there's this drift that happens in an employee, and it happens through either one encounter or six encounters, but these little things over time, and then eventually someone resigns. You're like, what happened? And the leader's clueless because they're so fixated on making the donuts every day.
How much did COVID and us being on lockdown and then people wanting working remotely and then not wanting to come back remotely, how, how did that affect how to lead and grow people?
I think on one hand I would make the case. I think it was in some cases, a lot of people I've talked to, it was easier. They like the lifestyle that, hey, I can work remote, I can relax. It's so it changed the dynamics of leadership for sure. I don't know. I feel like it depends on the region and the city, to be honest. Some cities were hyper lockdown and other cities weren't. And so I think the biggest part of what it did is it rattled leaders because they didn't necessarily know how to lead. And a lot of them used COVID as I'm done. We're good. I'm going to retire early. I'm moving on. And I think it really affected, like you had to if you're a leader and you made it through that, then you probably become more resilient.
Um, you described three competing pressures every leader juggles. Every leader juggles clients, their boss, their team's development. How development almost always loses. If that trade-off is so predictable, why do you think so few leaders build a system to protect development time rather than just trying to want it more?
Here's what I really think. I think leaders hope they can find leaders. Like it's almost like I always joke and say, I went to the greenhouse and I bought a plant, and every employee is like a plant, right? And I get this plant and I bring it home, and then I plant it in the wrong area. I don't water it effectively. I don't spend much time helping it grow and thrive. And then all of a sudden it dies. And then I go, plants. You can't find good plants these days. Then I go on and try it again. So the idea is that a leader, they have to understand that people can be an asset. But if you don't treat them, if you like are accidental as a leader and you allow the cares of your work, the client, your boss, and you ignore your people, then they will become a liability. And that's where I think most people miss it. It's like you're actually, if you create the systems ahead of time. So I think it's just natural. I think the default of most leaders is to please their boss and please their client, and just hope they find good people that they don't have to mess with. And that's not what development is.
Yeah, and that's why I remember IBM used to have really strong programs in developing people. And I think a lot of companies, as a cost-saving measure, got rid of these programs to develop people. And now you're hearing every day with the internet, I mean, with AI, that companies are downsizing and getting rid of people. Are companies giving up or just as a cost reduction not focused on developing people anymore?
For sure. I think that's what's happened. But I think that we don't know how to build human intelligence. We've got artificial intelligence, but human intelligence is so important because it's not just the data, it's what do you do with that data. So the way that I written the book, the way that my philosophy is that companies are made up of teams. Teams have team leaders. As the team leader goes, so goes the team. If you have an unhealthy team leader, you'll have an unhealthy team. You'll have an ineffective team. And because the employees are having to work around their boss, and then other teams are having to work around that team. So it makes the most sense. The companies that I've found that are most successful that I've worked with, and I've worked with some large companies, worked with small companies, work with Google. We do a lot of work and historically with the Fords and the Chick-fil-A's and these types of companies. But the best companies are fixated on the people who lead people. They're the most important people in the organization. It's like the Sherpa on Mount Everest. If I'm a guide and I have a bunch of climbers, I need the best Sherpa to lead those climbers up there because the one guide's not leading everyone up. So the Sherpa you need healthy Sherpa. If I have a Sherpa on Mount Everest who's like, got asthma and is got smoking 6 packs a day, I'm nervous that Sherpa is going to be able to lead the right people up. So we need healthy team leaders is the goal. And so if you have 200 team leaders or 2,000 team leaders, I would pour all of the development into those people because those people are the ones that can help. They'll drip down to their employees.
Who are the best companies do you think that are really developing leadership talent? I mean, it used to be GE was one of the best in the world, and many of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 came out of GE. But now GE really doesn't exist as we know it, as we grew up with it. It's now three companies, and nobody even talks about GE anymore.
What's really hard, I'll answer the question, but I'll say it like this. In the past, we grew up in the apprenticeship skills. Like if I was building a house or if I'm a mason, right? And I go, all right, Mark, come on, follow me, watch me. I'm going to do it. You just watch. Now I'm going to do it, Mark, and you help me. Now you're going to do it. I'm going to help you. Now you're going to do it. And I'm going to watch you. And that's apprenticeship. And that's easy with physical products. It's hard with technology. Hey, Mark, did you see how I sent this text message? Did you see how I sent that email? It's harder to apprentice people in the digital technological age, right? So there's a lot of companies who just kind of gave up on it. And so the standards went down on development of people, which again goes, we hope we can just find people who are good. And so there's not a lot of companies who are dedicated. I mean, I would say when we work with a few, Google is doing a good job and they're focused on this idea of the team leader. They get it. And so I appreciate what they're doing. Chick-fil-A is always a strong, there's a Quick Trip. A lot of companies are actually, they're heavy labor companies. So like Quick Trip is a a convenience store, but they do a great job of developing. And before they launch a new site, they basically say they have to be too deep in their bench before they'll open a new location. And so they have to develop up their talent and then then they'll start a new location. So the problem with today is I can't name five. I can't name five companies that everyone would know. There's a lot of small companies that I work with that are doing great jobs, but no one would know them.
I have a question from the audience, but before I do, I say Chick-fil-A is the standard for everything almost. I mean, they work a 6-day week. They stick to their value system. The stuff that they give away when my kids were young, and my kids are in their 30s now, was books. I mean, everybody else was given junk toys. These guys really invested in something of quality. Everything, the product quality. Did you ever meet anybody who said, that Chick-fil-A, it's crap? Nobody. During the pandemic, I would take my dog to the vet, and there was a Chick-fil-A, a McDonald's, a Burger King, and a Wendy's all next to each
Yeah.
other. Chick-fil-A was 30 deep in cars, and the other three, honestly, they were empty. And their people were like looking out the window, seeing 30 deep cars continuously going through. So that's got to say something about the quality of the product and the leadership.
I worked with in the days with Truett Cathy, the founder, and then Dan Cathy, who was his son. And what was interesting is Dan had this theory. He would give kitchen tours. He would make all the store leaders, store managers, have kitchen tours. So I think it still exists. I'm not sure, but if you go into a Chick-fil-A, you can ask to see the kitchen. And the reason he did it was if you know someone's coming over to your house today, you're going to keep it clean. So
Yeah.
if you know there's kitchen tours happening, you're going to keep it clean. And so there's these little hacks that they put in that kept the standards kind of replicating.
Brilliant. Question from the audience. Isn't it an important reason not to invest in development that once trained employees leave? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you've invested in a development now, they're taking it somewhere else?
That's okay. I could say that's a scarcity mindset or it's abundant mindset. So what I found is, and in fact, I've worked with a number of leaders who we had this one gentleman. He worked for this energy company, and he decided the energy company's culture was just average. He
Mhm.
decided he's going to build the best culture. Okay, but as soon as he would build his people up, he was losing them to other departments because they would be the next trainers. I mean, they would be
Yeah.
the leaders. So he bought in, and I was working with him. He bought into the idea of multiplication, but then multiplication starting building better cultures inside the organization. Then his name was Connie. It was his name. Connie then built such a reputation for such culture and such a great multiplier that he also had talent jumping to him. They wanted to be on Connie's team because Connie was the best developer and Connie built the best culture. And he literally took this little part and then he had a region and he had the largest region over about a 7 year period of time because of the way he built it. But it was a methodology and a mindset that I'm building great leaders. So, one, you can go ethereally. It's like, it's a great life because you have people who want to work for you, not have to work for you. So the drama goes down and people will work harder for you. They'll run through brick walls for you. So if you build that type of culture, then in essence, it's a long play, but it will build a better organization long term. But your reputation becomes stellar. And then when people want to work on your team and they start running to you, that means your opportunities, if you're an employee or if you're a rising employee, you get more influence and more uh, bonuses or more. What am I trying to say? You go up the ladder.
Yeah, I think in sports, Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs, who's turned out numerous coaches who've won Super Bowls, not like one, but numerous coaches, and almost all his assistant coaches who become head coaches succeed, and all of Bill Belichick's assistants who became coaches all failed. I don't know if there's one that had a winning season. I guess Vrabel was probably the first to be successful, and he took New England to the Super Bowl last year. But almost all of his assistants didn't even have winning seasons.
Right. And that's the style. That's the whole idea of the voice driven leader is like, if I know who I am and I know who they are, my employees, then I know them and I'm predicting. I know their leadership tendencies. I know what happens to them under stress because I know their personality and wiring. And that's this beauty of the five voices we built with the development square. So now if I know where they're at, I can then predict what tendencies they're going to have.
The chapter one closes with David realizing he was developing his team at work brilliantly while missing the same opportunity with his own son at home. Why did you choose to end the chapter there instead of with a workplace example? What were you hoping leaders would sit with?
Well, so I've been doing this, Mark, like you, a long time. I've been in this game for 20 something years. I used to own John Maxwell's companies. I've worked with all Pat Lencioni and Henry Cloud and all these thought leaders. And what I've found over time is as I started building my own content and creating these systems, it always went home. And in our world, because of these devices that we have, these cell phones, you can't compartmentalize business and life. It shows up, right? Technology gives us too much access. So what I found is that the principles that I'm delivering are the same principles that I had with my own kids. And when my kids turned, they were probably 10, 12, I had a wake up for myself. And I realized I'm being an accidental dad. And I can have compliant kids just like I can have compliant employees, or I can have engaged kids like I have engaged employees. So I started using the tools at work. I started using them on my own kids. And it literally transformed the way that they dealt with adults, communicated with me and my wife. We helped them under stress and know their stress behavior. So what I wanted to make the point of is that it's the same principle. The same is you are a Sherpa. You are your responsibility is to fight for the highest possible good of those that you lead. And you're responsible for those that you lead. And so if you're accidental in it, you're going to receive average. If you're intentional, you're going to receive probably above average. And
Yeah,
that's
if you're not invested.
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, that goes for all relationships, right? If you're not really invested and if you're not there to help your people be the best that they can be, I tell my students that's every day I wake up and all I care about is how do I maximize their potential. And students embrace that. I was voted one of the top three teachers at this school. And I don't think it's because I teach better than other people. I think the students really think that I care about them at the end of the day. So I don't think you have to be the smartest, the brightest, best looking, any of those things. I think people who see that you genuinely care about them will perform at a higher level in your kids. I always tell friends, young people, when you have children, if you invest time in them, the chances of them going wrong are pretty remote. So I used to get up at 4:30, go to the gym at 5, be home by 6 for dinner, and I tried to have dinner every night with my family. And I worked all day Sunday, but I would work from home. But I felt like if you made that investment, things were going to turn out well. My girls have turned out very well.
Good.
Whoop. In chapter two, you use oxygen mask analogy. Leaders have to develop themselves before they can develop others. In your work with executives, what does it typically look like when someone tries to skip the step and jump straight to developing their own team?
Yeah, it leads to hypocrisy because the idea is, hey, you know what, Mark? You know what you need to do? You need to here, take this book. I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, yeah, but you're not doing it. Like, you need to do it first. And it's amazing what hypocrisy will do in a culture. And so the idea is you can't give what you don't possess. So you have to possess it first. You have to get healthy first. Do the work for yourself. Then when people see that you're willing to change and you're willing to grow, they're going to be way more comfortable when you suggest that they grow. And that takes hypocrisy out of the equation. Hypocrisy is one of the top five uh, culture killers when the team starts talking about their boss and that their boss is not doing what he's asking them to do or she's asking them to do.
Yeah, leading by example. The assessment asks people to rate themselves on things like my team knows I'm for them, not just for myself. What's the gap you typically see between how leaders score themselves and how their teams would actually score them?
It's amazing how a little assessment, we do these team 360s and we do like a team leader. We ask the team leader to take their score. How well do they think they're leading? And then we get the team themselves, what's going on with you and the team. And the numbers are very, very, can be very different. The leader's like, oh, I'm at a 8, 9. And then the team's like, we're at a 5, 6 out of 10. And like, wow, look at the disconnect between how well a leader thinks they're doing versus how the team thinks they're doing. And so the team 360 is a really interesting wake up call for a lot of people. And oftentimes it's just, are you like I had a leader, I won't say what company, but I had a really significant business company that I was working with. And one of the leaders had a region. And I had this little quadrant and I put it up and said, where do you think you are? He put himself at the very top in his mind. And then I asked the team, where was he to scatter plot? And they wouldn't do it. So I asked him to leave. And when they did, they put him at the very bottom. And he comes in and he's like, are you kidding me? You threw me into the bus in front of this guy? Do you not know what I do for you? And we took a break, came back, and we said, how do we help our friend here? How do we help him get to the next level? And it was always little things. It was like, hey, can you give me a few minutes before I walk in the door, before you grill me about the day? You don't even know my wife's name. And she'd been around her, she comes by the office every week. You don't even know her name. Little things like that, that are little emotional intelligence issues are affecting their relational intelligence, which affects the trust, which then keeps people from aligning.
Do you think that also depends on the region of the country you're from and how the culture of that area is and what people's expectations are?
I think so, but at the same time, like I've lived in Russia, you know what I mean? I've worked in Turkey, I've worked in lots and lots of regions where there's a hierarchy and there's a alpha dog mentality, and the cultures aren't. And yet, at the very, very core, is if you still treat people as a liability. I mean, I was just in Qatar and Kuwait recently, and I had a few companies I was with, and they figured it out. We can make our people an asset, and all the other companies treat their people as a liability, and we get an immediate advantage. They're like the Chick-fil-A in their region. And so you can build unbelievable cultures when I mean, like, it just makes no sense. I had Mark, I had this interview with a New York Times person the other day, and she was like, yeah, but don't you think this is a lot of fluff? I'm like, developing people, like, what's your alternative? Do you know what it's like when you don't develop people? Do you know how miserable jobs are? Do you know how hard it is to lead people who don't want to work for you or aren't there? They're not engaged. It's miserable. It's not fun. It's not great. No one wants. So you create turnover factories, but it's not crazy. That's what we tried to break down. We built a map. It's like a monopoly board. Start here, go here, move here, move here. How do you get them from unconsciously incompetent to empowered? Well, there's a journey. And then each personality will go through that journey differently. If you learn that, you become a people whisperer. It's like this skill that is awesome, and it helps you for the rest of your life. And it's just funny how much pushback sometimes I get on this idea of development.
I teach my students that all the time. I said, you want people who come in excited to come to the office, that they feel that that you want to maximize their potential, that you care about their career, and the best and brightest will stay with you. And if you don't treat them well, the best and brightest leaving, you're just left with the mediocre talent who aren't being recruited by anybody else, and you're never going to be successful. I kind of think that's why a lot of star companies go down over time, is because they don't aren't able to retain the best talent, and they end up leaving for other places.
And Mark,
You,
on that real quick. So for those
yep.
listening, what Mark just said is so important, but like, you need to understand the secret to doing that. Just pick your team leaders. Who are the people who lead people? How many do you have? 10, 20? 50 or 2,000, that number is the magic number. If you'll know and understand that's where you put all of your energy and effort, it can make development better. Because some of you go, oh, we've got 10,000 employees. How are we going to develop 10,000 employees? You're not. You're going to develop the 2,000 leaders or the 500 team leaders. They will then trickle down and do that work. And that's the missing element I found. And it's so crazy to me. And then when we do work with the people and they have transformation and the business starts growing because they got rid of all of the sideways energy and the drama because they started getting their team leaders healthy. And if you say, let's say you have 50 team leaders, 10 of them just might not be the right people. They're not on the team. So we move 10 of them off. 10 of them are already doing great. We get the next 20 to move to the next level. And you've got that late majority who take a while to get there. But by doing that, oh my goodness, it's amazing the growth of an organization.
You suggest picking just one focus area rather than trying to improve everywhere at once. Why is that restraint so important? What goes wrong when leaders try to fix all 10 areas of the assessment at the same time?
It's just the simple idea of let's make if you take this assessment, and he's talking about assessment I have in the book, but if you pick the one area, let's just do one. Let's make progress. It's just you'll start seeing change faster.
In chapter three, the Paris Cafe analogy, speaking louder in English instead of learning French, is such a vivid image of what leaders do wrong. Was there a real moment in your own leadership where you realized you've been speaking louder at someone instead of learning their language?
It's crazy. Yes. I was in Atlanta. Again, this is all experience. Like this is me. I'm being personal going, okay, I've been leading companies and leading people for 25 years and, or longer. But, the reality is that, I was in, well, one, I was in, Russia and I experienced it. So I'll start with when I was in Moscow and I started learning the language, I gained more respect when I started speaking Russian. And I had other colleagues that were with me that didn't learn the language. So they weren't as effective because they weren't trying so when you don't try, then other people don't respect you enough. So the same thing was true with me is that I was speaking to my team and I was pushing and forcing people to do things my way. And I had a friend of mine who was a consultant. He was helping me, and he basically walked me through just the basics of wiring and personality. And I started trying things. And they go, "Oh my goodness, my Beth, my assistant, is a nurturer. Okay, Chad's a connector. Okay, Brad is acting like a pioneer. Okay, I need to speak their language. How do I speak their language?" So I started to just learn about them. And when I became interested in who they were and how to maximize their performance versus forcing them into my style, they began to thrive. And it was like they began to come alive and they noticed the change in me. So it's just like when I go into a cafe in France. I'm going to Lisbon this week, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be in a few cafes. I've been practicing my 10 Portuguese, phrases just to order coffee or ask for a menu or the basics of respect because I'm in their culture, and it's just common sense. And I think most people just haven't thought of it. And they're like, well, that's too hard. I'd have to learn 5 languages, my own language, and then 4 more. I'm like, yeah, you do. But you have to learn just enough.
Are you good with languages?
I'm okay. Probably not like you.
Oh, no, no, I'm not good with languages. I don't speak a word of Vietnamese. I've been trying to. It's one of the four hardest languages to learn,
Yeah.
and everything I butcher. So everybody pretty much says, let's just stick with English with you. And we'll figure it out that way. Now I'm in an English speaking school, although
Right.
they're all, somewhere from Southeast Asia, but everybody's English speaking.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that way that that's the case. Did you find that it was a maturity factor for you that um, over time you learned to be a better leader because you became a better listener and that you wanted to improve your own leadership style? That you could have gone one of two ways. As you get older, you either, I know what I'm doing, I've always been successful, or and for me, this is how it works. Even though I'm 65, I feel like I'm still in the learning phase.
Yeah, totally. Yes, and I probably have learned the most I've been a confidant and a coach to some of the, head football coaches and, college athletics, athletic directors, governors, political leaders, CEOs, and I've worked with I don't really care about the who's who and the different names, but I've worked with a lot of powerful leaders. And I watched them bungle most of the work they had. And I'd coach it and come behind them like, why did you feel like you had to say that? You had them. And then you lost them with your bluster. And
Yeah,
I don't I have this theory when I'm like I have nothing to prove, nothing to lose. So when I'm working with
yeah,
a leader, especially like a pioneer, like a top leader, I make them better and I go right into their world and I'm not afraid they can fire me, but I don't
yeah.
care. And so, but it's so much fun. So I probably learned the most by watching successful leaders be average and then going, what are you thinking? And then calling them up and fighting for their highest possible good to be the best they can be, even though they're the best in their industry or they're the highest level because they're an elected official or they're a football coach or whatever. And I've had a number of really hard confrontations to go. You push your players to be better. Do you want to be better or not? You're driving
I
everyone away.
I
And
100% agree with you. 100%. I think there are some people who are successful and they think it's based on their skills that they got there. Like we talked about Bill Belichick, and the minute Tom Brady walked out the door, everything changed. He went and won another Super Bowl, and they couldn't even get winning seasons, let alone that. And then he was out. And now we'll see what he can do at North Carolina. But nobody thought that he was a great leader to begin with. They thought he had a great football mind,
that,
and nobody even expected him to stay, be as successful as he was in New England. But he had the right guy, and that could cover for a lot of things, like
yeah,
having a great product. You have all this success and people say, "Oh my God, he or she must be brilliant," but they're not.
and that's the theme here is the idea is if you're a developer of people like you mentioned Andy Reid,
Yeah,
people want to be in your system. But if you're not a great people developer, but yeah, you know how to win, well, people will stay in it as long as they are winning too.
yeah,
But golly, as soon as they have an open door, they'll go somewhere else. And it's just, I don't know, partly it's legacy, but it's building culture. And again, to your point, when Tom Brady left, culture implodes. And because he wasn't, he's not a good person. He's not a good culture
yeah,
builder.
yeah. And he's cold and he's not connect with people. What do people always say about Andy Reid? Really good guy. Would visit his son in prison when his son was there and spend time with prisoners. Everything. Andy Reid seems to put people first, and even though for the 14 years in Philly he was successful, but we never won the Super Bowl with him. But he's still so well liked in Philadelphia that when he came back, they gave him a standing ovation, and people were thrilled to see him win the Super Bowl. And I kind of think the leaders that people want to see successful are the ones that people want to follow.
That's it. Exactly.
So, You share the statistic that nurturers make up 43% of the population, but are often the quietest voice in the room, while pioneers are only 7%, but disproportionately represented in executive leadership. What does that gap tell us about who tends to set the default leadership culture in most organizations and what gets lost because of it?
Really great question, Mark. That's exactly what happens. So 7% of the population run the majority of the companies in the world. So because they're hired to win, pioneers are generals, and they basically allocate people and resources to win, and then they only want people around them that know how to win. And so therefore they create this winning culture, but winning at all costs. Well, what happens though, they're not the best culture builders. So they might win for 2 years, 3 years, and then they're out, because and then it's the next one, and then it's the next one. And, the tenure of a CEO is not very high in this world. So they're brought in to win. And I think pioneers, I play a pioneer a lot in my world. The reality though is that if you ignore the 43% of a population, these are the fabric of the world. 43% are nurturers, 30% are guardians. That makes 73% of the population are present oriented. They're thinking about today through the weekend. 27% are future oriented. That's where the rift is. That's where a lot of the conflict in companies are, in governments are, in families, is this present versus future. So if you're a great leader and a pioneer is a future oriented voice, you have to slow down to speed up. You have to slow down, build the bridge, explain why you're doing what you're doing, and then they will follow. And when they follow, boom, that's when a culture. But if you get people with their foot on the brake inside your own company, then you're fighting your own people because they don't believe in you, in the vision, and they think you're going to steer us right off the cliff. And they remember the last guy that did it.
No question about it. In the story of Dan and Kate, Dan responded to Kate's dip in performance by doubling down on pressure, which was exactly the wrong move for her voice. For a leader listening right now, who might be doing the same thing to someone on their team without realizing it? What's the first sign they should look for that tells them this isn't a performance problem, it's a voice mismatch?
Yeah. The complexities of people development is that you're dealing with their personal life, you're dealing with their personality, and you're dealing with their professional life. So they may be having things going on at home you don't even know. You're clueless about. Their mom has cancer, their son has an issue that they're embarrassed to tell people about. There's a marriage issue. Yeah, that going on. Then you have the dynamics of, oh, you're a pioneer and she's a nurturer. Well, what do nurturers value? People. Nurturers are champions of people. They're like relational oil inside the organization. If they feel that you're hurting people, or that you're irresponsible to the people in the culture in the world, then they're going to put their foot on the brake, or they're going to be a mama bear and they're going to become passive aggressive. So putting more pressure on a nurturer is not the best. So what this book is about is basically it's giving you clues on how to unlock people. If you know you're speaking to a nurturer, yeah, hey, Linda, I just wanted to talk to you. Here's where we're going. Tell me where your concerns are. I really want to hear them, and then give me a chance to explain them to you. Well, I'm really concerned. I heard you say this, and oh yeah, I can see how you misinterpret. Yeah, no, I get it. Thank you. It's actually like this. But how do you think I should respond to other people? What's a better way to respond? Then she's got buy-in, and now she becomes an advocate for you, because when someone comes to her and she goes, no, Mark, he's great. No, I know it sounded like that. He's actually meaning this. She becomes now a help. So I just don't, it's so amazing to me. Sometimes a lot of pioneers will double down and they'll use their stress behavior as using a grenade launcher and they blow people up. And then they just double down on that. And then pride takes over. And then then their people pull away from them and they'll withhold care and they'll let that pioneer fail. And
Aren't the best? Go ahead.
nope, that's it.
I run the hackathon here at VinUni, and when I first came on, I said, "What's the purpose of your hackathon?" And they told me they wanted to see how much stress the students could take. It's all freshmen. I go, "That's idiotic. Why would we do that when every CEO is trying to figure out how to de-stress the environment to get the most out of people? Why would you think that's a smart idea? Don't you think the best CEOs are trying to figure out?" In a world full of stress today, more stress now than when I entered the workforce, especially because there's no long-term commitment by companies to keep people, relationships, not like when I was getting married and people and the generation before, hey, you just stuck with it. There's all kinds of pressure. Your kids under pressure, the internet, the AI. Aren't most the best leaders trying to figure out how to reduce stress?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Chronic stress is the killer, and it doesn't produce the best. It produces scurry and striving, not hustle. So I always say, if you think of a basketball game and you go, have you ever seen a team that's stressed and they're scurry? What do? They cause fouls, they make dumb decisions, they have turnovers. Have you ever seen a team that's hustling? What do? And so it's this confidence. So great leaders produce confidence. Great leaders bring security. Great leaders will actually know their people to lead their people. And their people trust them because they know themselves and they're leading themselves. And so that's the beauty of this. There's a system to it.
You talk about Greg Popovich, one of my favorite all-time coaches, and I never heard a single player ever say that they didn't like playing for this guy. Never heard anybody say that it wasn't a privilege to play for him. So you use Greg Popovich and the Spurs as a model of intentional development, and you point out that his players went on to become coaches, GMs, long after he coached them. What's the one habit or practice from his approach that you think translates most directly to a business leader trying to build that same kind of lasting bench strength?
So you know what Greg would do is he would do a 1-to-1. They'd go to dinner. They would have a steak dinner, glass of wine. He would teach them about wine. He would teach them about meals, different things. Where'd you come from? But it was just, he'd have these 1-to-ones and he would take the time to know them. And the players felt it was personal. And then I like him. And then he would tell them, like, and these aren't the right words. These are my words, but he's like, do you know I'm for you, right? I'm going to be supporting you, but I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to push you to be the best you will ever be in your entire life. But that's love. I'm going to fight for your highest possible good. And I just want you to know, and that he would look for players who were open to that level of development. And so, but that's personal. That's relational. This isn't just transactional. Okay, that one's out. Get a new plant, get a new employee. It was like, actually, no, I so care about what we're trying to do at our little team. And I'm for you. Let's go to coffee. Tell me about you. I was meeting yesterday with a leader from Deloitte. She had been running their AI initiatives, and she said that she came in as a nobody. And I said, "What was your secret?" And she said, "Well, my secret was I rose up the ranks really quickly, and all I did is I asked anyone that I was going to work with if I could get 15 to 30 minutes for a coffee just to get to know them. Then I would just talk to them and just ask them questions, and they knew me and I knew them. And then she said, here's the most amazing thing that happened. It wasn't manipulation because I was truly curious. But you know what? Every single person would respond to my emails. And in a big organization, People don't respond to emails. And that's how I got stuff done. 15 to 30-minute coffees. So I'm not talking crazy stuff here. I'm talking know your people just enough. Then as you work and develop them, know their personality. If you know their personality, if you can take the 5 voices test, 5voices.com, really simple. If they go and take it, it gives you everything. It's like a plant card. A plant card tells you how much water it needs, how much sunlight it needs. It's a cheat sheet to growing that plant. What do most people do when they get a plant? Throw the card away. And they go, "Oh,
Yeah.
I know how to deal with plants. You just water them." No, you overwater them, underwater them, too much sunlight, not enough sunlight. That's all the 5 voices are. They're plant cards for humans. And if you learn to read the card and know them, just the basics, you're going to be 75% there. The rest of it is nuance. And, so it's just amazing how most people just throw a card away.
And being available to the employees, right? Like seen and approachable. My partner for one of my ventures that I mentioned to you is named Walker Tompkins, and he had built American Express Credit Corp to 32 billion. And when we partnered, I had a beautiful corner office, and he goes, "You can't be there." I was the founder. He said, "You need to be in the bullpen with everybody else." And and so he said, "At least 3 days a week, you got to be in the bullpen," because I like thinking about things and developing stuff. But he was right. It was a learned lesson that people felt I was much more approachable if I sat in a cubicle, that they could just come up and talk to me about anything, even, how the Eagles were doing, whatever, and become much more human to them. And then they work that much harder for you. So I thought that was a lesson that stayed with me. In chapter 5, The Pit of Despair is such a memorable name for the stage between immersion and empowerment. You note that each voice experiences it differently. Pioneers mask it with overconfidence, nurturers withdrawal, and so on. As a leader, if someone is masking their despair rather than showing it openly, how do you actually catch it in time?
Yeah, this is where you have to be aware. It's like clues. Oh, she's gotten quieter. He's avoiding me. Those are all signs. So, what are the signals that people are sending to you? You want to keep them out of the pit of despair. The pit of despair is where employees go when they realize they're not going to make it, and they fake it to make it. And then other employees know that they're not going to make it, and they begin working around them. So that employee checks in every day to the office, they clock in, and then they go downstairs with the 5 to 10 other people in the pit of despair. And they're like, "How long have you been down here?" And they're like, "Yeah." "Who pushed you in?" "Mark." He's a jerk, isn't he?" And then they start gossiping. And so to keep people out of the pit of despair is to know who they are and then watch their signals. And they'll tell you that they're not getting it, which means they need a little bit more informal time with the formal time. They need a little bit clear vision, and they need some specific encouragement to help them figure it out.
I'm just curious as I'm asking you these questions. Why are you so successful in this that college football coaches and CEOs and all these other people trust you? What did you develop in yourself that made you so valued on a global basis from all these different leaders?
So I think part of it is one, I for another time, I got hit by a drunk driver, my wife and I, in a hurricane in Mexico in 2002, and I got to stop breathing for 4.5 minutes, and I got to do a near death experience, end of life, the whole bit, and it changed the entire trajectory of my life and my view of this world. And so I kind of lost my ambition got redeemed. It wasn't about me being somebody. It wasn't about me with all the accolades. So that's why I probably undersell all that I've done and who I am, what I'm doing, because I don't really care of what people think. I'm not trying to be someone. I'm actually a liberator. I'm a freedom fighter. And so I don't care what people think. If they want me to help them and they're responsive, then I'm going to fight for their highest possible good. And we're going to have some major breakthroughs. So I think they know that I'm not trying to be someone. So therefore, it helps them trust me. And then they know that I'm fighting for their highest possible good, and they'll allow me to pour into them because I know personalities and wiring. I've gotten pretty good at speaking and communicating based on what they want and who they are, not just in my style. So I think that's probably why. And so now I'm just in this season of life. I think 55 to 72 are the most influential years of life and the influence years. And so I'm basically walking in that freedom right now.
In chapter 6, you contrast Sarah and Mark. Same goal, same situation, completely different outcomes. And the differences wasn't talent, it was intention. When you've seen leaders like Mark get defensive about struggling, new hire, and say, I hired the wrong person, how do you help them actually see it was the onboarding, not the person?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we've created this map. And if you're listening to this, the voice driven leader, it has the entire map for you to go through. And you understand, what does onboarding look like? What does immersion look like? What does engagement look like? What does multiplication look like? And then it helps you place your people on the square. And so there's all these games you can play. And it's like, oh my goodness, no wonder we have an issue here. I think the idea that I'm going after, Mark, is I'm wanting people to become aware. I'm wanting them to be aware of who's on your world, um, how are they wired, where are they on the journey, and do you know what to do next? And if can do that, you're just going to become a more effective leader. And then when you do that, it's a much more fulfilling life. You're going to benefit big time because people are going to want you, and therefore your promotions will go up.
You note that leaders often skip the foundation stage because they assume I hired smart people, they'll figure it out. Is there a version of that instinct that actually true, a point where over explaining or over modeling starts to backfire or just leaders rationalizing a shortcut?
The foundation stage is onboarding. Every role has a different onboarding. If I'm a Chick-fil-A drive-through employee, it's probably a week of onboarding. If I'm a CIO, it's probably a 4 month, 6 month onboarding, right? So if you know who they are and what their role is, then onboarding. So what we're doing is to go, pioneers are not very good at onboarding. Connectors are not very good. Future oriented voices are not good at onboarding. The best onboarders are nurturers and guardians. So if you're not good at it, put someone else in to play that role. But the idea is, what would you want if it was you? How would you want to be welcomed in, and how do I set someone up for success? Again, most people are busy, so they just get distracted and don't do it well.
I got we had a lot of questions for you, but we're, down to the end of the hour. So, of everyone's you've developed over the years, team members, clients, leaders inside the Giant, is there one person whose growth still surprises you when you think about it? Someone who became far more than you expected when you started working with them?
Um, so super fun. Tracy, she really runs our ops. When I came in, I kind of hired her as an assistant, and I knew her well. But she has, it's culture. Healthy people grow in healthy cultures. And she was very reticent and very like, oh, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I know technology. And now she's one of the most proficient people in our organization. Everyone follows Tracy. In fact, we're having a big voices event. We have a lot of our main people will come in. We'll have about 150 of our consultants in, and she's going to be speaking. And because she's on the ops team, but she has developed an unbelievable speaking skill just being around us and watching. She's developed tech talent. She's she's a guardian, and so sometimes people are not the, but everyone trusts her. And so now we gave her a slot at one of our most coveted speaking areas, and so that is a great sign of like she's a person who's thrived because of the culture.
So here's my last question. 12 years from now, what would you want a leader who read this book today to be able to say about the people they developed because of it?
I would want their kids first. They're going, oh my goodness, I changed the trajectory of my children and the relationship I had with them. That's one. Two, I would want them to basically have 4 or 5 people that if you ever interviewed them, they would be talking about this leader. If it wasn't for Greg, I wouldn't have X, Y, and Z. Greg put me in this position. He called me up. He gave me a chance. He made me better. It's a better way of living when you can start developing people and do it based on their voice, not on yours. But if you understand who you are and who they are and know where they are on the board, you make them better.
I thank you so much for your time. I really embraced your book. I can see why you're so successful, and I wish you continued success. And I hope that we'll have you back for another book, and have a wonderful vacation with your wife.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you.
Everybody, thanks for coming today, and look forward to seeing you all hopefully next week. Take care.